Piles of trash left to rot in the New Orleans sun. Spotty collection schedules left a stinky mess, but it wasn't always an issue. In fact, between 2013 and 2018, residents consistently listed trash collection as one of the best city services in UNO polls. So what went wrong?
Well, the owner of one trash company says the whole mess could have been avoided, but instead believes the Cantrell administration orchestrated a trash crisis in order to move contracts. Here's our new Talking Trash investigation.
Did Mayor Cantrell try to destroy your reputation?
I think she did a good job at it. Yes.
For more than a year, New Orleans residents have been frustrated by trash piling up along the city streets.
And with the stench that's going on around the neighborhood, you can't hardly sit outside.
It stinks. It's filthy.
Unreliable garbage collection, inconsistent schedules.
It's supposed to be picked up Monday. It's supposed to be gone.
The owner of a trash company the city fired admits their service just stunk.
First of all, I offer an apology to the citizens who felt they got less than service that they wanted from Metro. It's not what we were known for.
Metro Disposal owner Jimmy Wood says the city has handcuffed its trash collectors, essentially forcing his company into bankruptcy.
I would say that the garbage crisis was created by the administration.
A review of hundreds of pages of invoices and documents reveals the city might have shortchanged its garbage contractors millions of dollars in revenue the companies were owed, preventing them from hiring people to ride on trucks and pick up your trash, possibly contributing to the garbage crisis the city now faces.
It appears that we have a corporation that, for whatever reason, did not get the money that they were contracted to receive, and as a result, they could not pay, they could not deliver services to the citizens.
Metro Disposal had a contract since 2006 to pick up residential garbage in what's called Service Area 2, New Orleans East, Gentilly, and Lakeview. Documents related to the contract show the city would pay Metro for every house it picked up trash. The initial document estimated it at just over 65,000 homes. Those records show Metro billed for 66,000 homes every month, even though the company picked up trash from more than 70,000. Metro noted on many invoices it picked up from more homes, but the city refused to pay, costing the company about $1 million a year. Calls to the mayor to try to get paid properly went unanswered.
Did you try to get a meeting with the mayor?
I did.
And she wouldn't meet with you?
No.
Instead, the city and Metro asked a consulting company to inspect the contracts and provide a third-party opinion. That, according to the owner of that third-party company, Henry Consulting. Henry concluded the city was not properly interpreting the contract, intentionally or unintentionally to the disadvantage of Metro. Henry Consulting found the city owed Metro an extra $900,000 a year.
And the city ignored that report, as they did our many requests to have a conversation on that subject.
Late last year, the city moved on from Metro and hired 2 new trash collectors as a replacement, Waste Pro and Ivy Waste. It decided to pay those new companies for all of the homes it collects from, more than 70,000, and will do a recount of homes in 6 months, something it would never do for Metro. It essentially is paying those companies for the homes it refused to pay Metro for.
This administration is working overtime to not only destroy my family name and my business.
Wood says the city also destroyed his business by refusing to pay for the extra trash coming from homes during COVID and following Hurricane Ida. During COVID, with everyone at home, trash tonnage surged. But the documents related to the Metro contract have an emergency clause to take something like that into consideration. For Metro, 6,495 tons was the pre-established baseline. When the city goes over that during a declared emergency, Metro is allowed to charge an additional $250 a ton. So 7,000 tons in 1 month would net Metro an additional $126,000 if the city followed this clause of the contract. Here's the documents where the city declared an emergency for COVID and Ida, but the city refused to pay Metro and its other trash collector, Richards, any additional money. Month after month, Metro collected more than 6,500 tons of trash the city wouldn't pay, by our calculation costing Metro nearly $7 million.
Obviously, our reputation has been tarnished in part by actions of the city. I think the general public don't understand that we were basically working with our hands cuffed behind our back because the city refused to enact the emergency clauses like the surrounding governments did around New Orleans. So we were at a disadvantage. And I think that in addition to that, I don't think the general public understand that Metro has been, along with Richards, has been woefully underpaid since 2017. And that obviously affects your service levels.
We found many other cities and parishes paid garbage collectors extra money during COVID. $43 for every additional ton in Slidell, $125 in Terrebonne, an extra $2.50 per house per month in St. Tammany. After Hurricane Ida, Jefferson Parish paid out an additional $1.3 million to its garbage contractor. Lafourche, $471,000. New Orleans, nothing, even though federal dollars were available to cover the extra cost. It wouldn't have cost the city a dime. In fact, the Bureau of Governmental Research and former Congressman and White House advisor Cedric Richmond both say the city still has $194 million in COVID relief funds it hasn't spent.
Cedric Richmond, who you know, was in the White House, for part of this.
Yes.
Did he tell you money was available for you?
He did, yes. I would say I talked to people in the White House, people in the congressional office. I would say that.
And they told you money is available for the
absolutely.
city? And the city just refused to?
In fact, I put Cedric on the phone with Ramsey Green, who was with the city at the time. I facilitated those calls with Cedric when he was in Congress, and then when he went to the White House, I facilitated those calls with the city.
And they just wouldn't do it?
No, they never did it.
Again, the city had access to federal funds, but the city didn't tap into it. Wood says the city's refusal to pay him for all of the homes he serviced and not paying him extra during COVID and Ida bankrupted his company. He filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in October of last year.
I mean, obviously, service suffered. We just didn't have enough bodies to get the waste off the street, and you compound that with everybody staying home, and there's more waste. So there's more waste and fewer staff to get it up. And yes, something's going to give. That's why it's so unfortunate that the city didn't make additional resources available to where we could, double our efforts to try to get more people in.
So you had trouble getting staff?
Absolutely.
So you had to raise salaries?
We did, without any additional compensation.
So then you started losing money?
Absolutely. And we were already being underpaid to the tune of 5,000 homes a month, roughly, since the inception of the contract. And we tried to engage the city to have that discussion. So it was already a very lean contract. And on top of that, then the pandemic hit, which raised the cost of doing business substantially.
The city paid Metro $13.60 a home per month for twice-a-week garbage and recycling pickup. Wood says funding him fully would have kept his company in business. Instead, the city hired new collectors. Under the new contract, residents are paying more for less. $13.60 for twice a week in recycling has turned into about $22 a home for once a week pickup. So a contract worth about $11 million a year is now costing taxpayers $19 million.
So they're paying them for fewer days to pick up garbage, they're paying them a higher rate, and they're paying them for more homes than they paid you.
That is correct.
Does that make sense for taxpayers?
Well, really it doesn't, and it didn't have to be. If the city had just paid Metro that $1 million or so a year more, our contracts would still be in place, and that would be to the benefit of the citizens to, over the next 7 years, for about $70 million.
70?
70.
That's a lot of taxpayer
Yes.
money.
About $10 million a year.
Woods thinks this all could be political. He was a strong supporter of Cantrell's opponent in her first mayoral election, Desiree Charbonnet. The owner of the other holdover trash collector, Richards, also gave money to Charbonnet. Cantrell inherited both of these contracts from the former mayor, Mitch Landrieu.
Well, it feeds into the analysis that this is political, that is somebody trying to help create a crisis in order to move contracts from one firm to another one, because there's no other, it can't be such a high level of incompetence. I mean, obviously the administration is aware that there was federal dollars out there to pay that. We're not even talking about money to come out of the city's budget. We're talking about federal dollars that were available to where it would have never been a garbage crisis. So it almost makes you think that certain people wanted to have this crisis in order to move these contracts because it was totally unnecessary. Federal funds available, other parishes, cities used it. The city of New Orleans chose not to do it, and obviously it hurt the companies in the city, both Metro and Richards. Haven't received one penny additional for collecting all of that additional waste behind COVID as well as Ida.
Metro has been locked in a legal dispute with the city. The city reached a settlement with the company, agreeing to pay nearly $4 million. $4 million in tax money, essentially agreeing it owed Metro for past service. Dillard political analyst Robert Collins says the facts in this story show whatever the motivation, the city failed to pay what it owed. That forced a locally owned company to file for bankruptcy, left trash piling up on streets, and damaged quality of life for residents.
And it appears that somewhere a policy decision was made not to pay them the full amount of that money. And they really were owed that money, as we saw. I mean, if the city didn't think they were owed that money, they wouldn't have settled out of court, in the court case and paid them the money at the end after they went bankrupt. So I think the issue is perhaps, I think someone made a decision, someone in the mayor's office or someone in City Hall, a decision, we don't know if it was a political decision or some other type of decision to not pay Metro the full amount of their contract. And that decision, I think, caused a lot of grief to a lot of citizens because their services did not get delivered, their garbage did not get picked up. And so that's really the issue.
We sent the city an email asking why it didn't use federal money available to offset the company's extra tonnage and why it paid Metro for fewer houses than it collected trash from. The city never responded.
Anybody who's lived in Metro service area over the past year or looked in from the outside could tell you that clearly the services that residents deserve are not being provided.
The city also declined our request for an on-camera interview, but in past interviews repeatedly criticized Metro and the service it provided residents.
Whether Metro believes that they're being held to a different standard or other companies are not being held to the same standard is irrelevant.
Jimmy Woods says that is relevant, and the city's stance will cost taxpayers tens of millions of dollars. And he says it could have also saved New Orleanians the headaches and frustrations they have suffered due to piles of unwanted trash.
Did the city in a way put you out of business or try to put you out of business?
The city made it very difficult for us to do business. Some might say that it was intentional because obviously the beneficiary of Metro's plight is a political supporter of the mayor. I've heard that from many places. On the other hand, perhaps it was just mismanagement on the city's part. One of those two things is correct. I'm not sure which.
As we noted, Richards Disposal operates under the same contract guidelines as Metro. After first threatening to advertise Richards' contract for competition, the city has apparently now taken a softer stance. The Cantrell administration is now restructuring the Richards contract, working on what it calls a get-well package for the company. Jimmy Woods of Metro says this is further indication that the city underpaid him and didn't interpret his contract properly.